Good morning, hello, and welcome to this episode of the Be Free podcast. So, I think this episode is going to be super fun, super inspiring, super inspirational. There will definitely be laughter. I am speaking to Laura Bailey this morning, and Laura
Morning.
is a TEDx speaker who's actually based in my hometown, but isn't from my hometown. And Laura, this isn't your bio, this is me. Laura has so many interesting stories, facets. There's the elements of her TED Talk. She's really passionate about speaking about cyclical living, about women getting to know their menstrual cycle, lots about identity, about pleasure. And then the other side of her, she's a librarian, which I freaking love because, I love books. Um, and yeah, welcome, Laura, to the Be Free podcast.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, so buzzing that we actually got to meet in person a couple of weeks ago as well.
Yeah, it was so nice to finally properly meet you.
So yeah, so I followed Laura on social media. I think I actually probably started following you maybe when you moved away from Aberdeen randomly, not
Oh,
even when you
really?
were here, I think. And just came across, yeah, like some mutual friends had shared posts of yours or whatever. And so yeah, so when I saw you across that networking event a couple of weeks ago, I was like, yay! So nice to actually meet you. So yeah, do you want to do a little intro to who you are and all that jazz?
I feel like you've introduced me better than I could have introduced myself. I always find that part really
Oh
hard, is
yeah.
like introducing who I am. And like you say, obviously, I've done my TED talk, and a big part of that was exactly about that introduction of like, who are you? And we so often go straight into what we do for work
Yeah.
as the introduction to who we are. So yeah, it's really interesting that straight away I want to be like, oh, I do this and I do that.
Yeah,
As if my
totally.
career is who I am.
But your career isn't who you are anymore.
Not anymore. Well, I would like to think not anyway.
So just who are you then, Laura?
I don't know. And I think that was my introduction when I did my talk like a year ago as well. I was like, I actually think that I just still don't know. And
Hmm.
I know we spoke about this before. I actually think for me, who I am is just in the figuring that out.
Yeah.
Like every day, I feel like a little bit different. And I think for me, who I am is not necessarily a thing I can really describe or a destination. It's just something that every day I'm like, oh, this is who I am today. This is what I like
Yeah.
today. So I honestly, I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah, and I think that's like such an honest, great response to that question because as you say, I think so many of us, and it's not until we are going to speak about identity and stuff, but it's not until we drop those identities or the loss of identity is forced upon us,
Yeah,
whether that is through redundancy, in my case it was ill health, or and you suddenly can't do the roles. Right. So
yeah,
yeah, the roles aren't the identity, but when I view you as a person and all the things you do, it's your passions.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like our passions, the things that inspire us, that make us unique and individual, which is who we are. So it's not the fact that we're a mother or a daughter or a TEDx speaker or a mindfulness teacher or like that's not who Susie and Laura is, really. It's what we do.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna little dive in. I did send Laura over some questions in advance, and we're gonna see where we go, but we already said before we recorded there's probably zero chance that we'll actually stick to this
I
conversation.
love a tangent.
Yeah, we both love a tangent, so we'll see. We'll see what comes through for you guys, but I know that it is going to be super inspiring. So, um, yeah, like you mentioned this coming home to yourself, and like I just wondered, like I know that you're passionate now about the menstrual cycle. So how do you see the menstrual cycle as this kind of built-in guide almost for us doing that coming home to ourselves?
So I think for me, I was so detached from my menstrual cycle for such a long time that I don't think I really realized how much it influences who we are on a day-to-day level. Like our hormones throughout that cycle influence literally everything. And I think we are so disconnected from our bodies, from ourselves, that for me, learning about that cycle and that process has literally just helped me connect with, oh, this is who I am because actually that thing that's happening is because of this hormone in my cycle. That's not actually who I am.
Yeah.
It also is part of who I am because that, again, who I am changes throughout that cycle depending on what's happening in my body, depending on whether I'm looking after myself or whether I'm not looking after myself. And I think that's where we meet that resistance sometimes of if we're pushing too hard and trying to work in a world that's not really, if we're honest, made for people with the cycle.
Mhm.
I think we get swept up in the not knowing who we are because of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And Laura is really passionate about advocating for getting to know your cycle and awareness of that. So how did that come to light for you, that getting to know your cycle?
So I was on the pill for 15 years of my life.
Mm.
And I was on the mini pill, so I didn't bleed at all. So I did not have a period for 15 years.
Yeah.
And when I think back now, I'm like, what? Like, that is wild. But it was that case of, which I know it has happened to so many people, of getting put on the pill from being really young. Like, I was put on the pill from like 14, I think.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even sexually active then. So I don't know why.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I think back in the day, like I was prescribed it for my skin.
yeah,
When I was a teenager, I was put on the pill for acne.
yeah. And they just give it out like willy-nilly. And I think at that time you don't like you're not even fully developed, do you
Hmm.
know, and you haven't got all of that information. And even as an adult, I was never given all of the information about the different contraceptive choices, like, or even just learning about my cycle to make that choice for myself.
Yeah.
So it was my mental health was really bad. And I know people say the pill can obviously affect that. So I went through a period of coming off the pill
Yeah.
and I didn't understand what was happening to my body because I'd been in this state of not bleeding for so long. And I actually attended, it was Laura who runs Jack Pine Theory. She ran a conscious cycles event back in, I think, 2020. It must have been during COVID because it was online.
Hmm.
And some of the stuff she taught me, I was like, what? Do you know what? I was like in my late 20s at this point, and I didn't know any of this stuff about what a menstrual cycle was. So that was like the beginning of my journey. And she's trained with Red School. So I did like quite a lot of reading. I read their books. I went to like their free online workshops. And eventually I actually did their menstruality leadership program because I just, once I got into understanding it, I just
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, like everybody needs to know this stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I feel like I want to do a dive into that and not stick not stick to the questions already. But yeah, I mean, I think, as women, yeah, we really historically have not been educated as to, what the menstrual cycle means. I feel that probably the younger generation, I don't know if this is correct or a good thing or not, but are more educated through the likes of things like TikTok. I know my daughter, for example, is really aware of obviously I have supported that as well, really aware of her cycle, and what that means at different times so that she can begin to understand herself more deeply. Whereas when I was younger, I was getting panic attack. I can see it now. Yeah, but I was getting panic attacks and that's actually just a little light bulb moment for me because I had two panic attacks on Wednesday or Thursday, Tuesday, who knows, a couple of days ago when I was bleeding. There you go. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had that when I was younger, and obviously didn't understand that. I just thought there's something wrong with me and I'm weird and all of that. But I think more and more women, because we are becoming more educated in around cyclical living, and that there's obviously such a big influence in and around perimenopause, menopause, um, can only be a good thing, but there's like this missing age group probably where and it's the older, like it's us, like as we're older in our
Yeah.
30s and 40s and 50s and like you know the late 20s like haven't don't know.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. And I think because I'm a qualified sex educator as well, so many people say, "Oh, do you teach children? Do you go into schools?" And I'm like, "No, actually, it's the adults that I think need this information because, like what you've just said, there's this whole generation of people that weren't taught this stuff.
Hmm.
And it's great that younger people are getting access to this information online, but it's still a case of like, obviously, some people like yourself are quite open minded. There's lots of people who are parents and teachers and all the rest who are coming into contact with young people who don't have that knowledge or that open mindedness because they've never been given that information themselves. So it's
Hmm.
just, yeah, it's such a big topic.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to understanding our cyclical nature, how do you think that can support us with kind of our identity and our sense of worth?
I think just like what we said before, for me, everything that I teach comes back to just that connection to your own cycle. And I know even from just doing a workshop recently, so many people said that they struggle with the information out there about cycle syncing
Mm.
because actually for some people that's not always accurate
Yeah.
because they think that's what they should be experiencing at different times of their cycle, but actually that might not be true of everyone because we're all really different. So for me personally, I thrive in my follicular phase, which is more the masculine, not in terms of gender roles, but in terms of like
Hmm.
a broader definition of the word. Like that is for me where I'm my best. Like I'm day 10 today, so I'm like woo, full of energy. But for other people, they thrive more in their luteal phase,
Hmm.
which a lot of the narrative around cycle syncing says that you should be more introverted in that phase, that you should be slowing down. But actually, a lot of people like really thrive in that phase, and that's where they feel most comfortable. So
Hmm.
it's really just listening to your own body and tuning into that. And I think that's where the sense of worth comes from because you're then listening to what your body needs and then honoring that instead of like ignoring it or listening to it and still doing the opposite and pushing against it. It's
Yeah.
almost just like that thing you said earlier of coming home to yourself and just trusting in what your cycle is showing
Hmm.
you.
Yeah. So just like a little cycle 101, if somebody wanted to start tracking, what would they like? I know how I like mine is super basic and I do have apps and stuff, but I actually prefer like I've got like a little bit at the front of my diary where I just mark day one, two, three, da 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 da, and just write how I'm feeling on each day. And then I found that, especially at perimenopause, great to go back to the doctor and be like, no, this depression that I was experienced before was always on day such and such and such and such. Like I
Yeah.
know, and that gave me peace because I'm like, okay, I'm not losing my mind. I know that in a day or two's time that I'm
Yeah.
going to be out of that dark space, and then, as you say, like more thriving again, and you know, and using it in that way. But yeah, how did you start to track your cycle, or for anybody who's listening?
Yeah, so I actually did start using an app. So it was actually Natural Cycles I started with, and that's the one where you take your temperature every morning. So for some people that might not work because it's literally as soon as you wake up, you have to take your temperature. But that for me gave me almost like that foundation of just understanding that very basic what is normal for me, how
Hmm.
long is my cycle usually, when am I most likely to ovulate. And then from there, I started diving deeper, and I've tried probably every single way of tracking imaginable. I've used notes on my phone, I've tried paper diaries, I've tried cycle tracking charts. And I think, to be honest, people just need to try different things until
Yeah.
they find something that works for them. What I find the easiest is actually building it into something that you already do.
Mhm.
So I had at one point like 6 or 7 daily notebooks that I was
Yeah.
using for different things. And eventually I was like, why do I not just put this all together? So
Mhm.
now when I do my morning pages, I literally just write the day of my cycle at the top. And then that gives me that opportunity to reflect on what's coming up. how
Mhm.
I'm feeling, and then I do the same at night time, just how have I felt today? Is there any patterns emerging, like you said, at different parts of my cycle? Because the key is, like you said, understanding what's normal for you, so
Yeah.
that when you have got an abnormality or something that's not usual for you, or something that maybe is usual for you, but that shouldn't be happening, you've then got that foundational knowledge to be like, oh, this is happening all the time, do you know?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think as women, we can feel really disempowered because of our cycle, but actually, once, like as you've said, like we get to know ourselves, we can really become our own best advocates. So I think it's
Mhm.
something that's like critically important for women to understand.
Massively. And even like you said earlier, especially once people hit that perimenopause stage, I think so like menopause is being spoken about so much now, and that's absolutely amazing. But for me, like the whole 30, 40 years of cycle and life that we have before that
Yeah.
is like preparation for that phase. And the way I describe it is, to me, perimenopause is almost like a prolonged luteal phase. It's almost like premenstrual syndrome on
Yeah.
steroids, do you know? So I think if we start to understand what's going to come up, like you said, you know when you're going to be in that low phase. So you can then put supports in place for your cycle that work for you in that period to say, right, during this time, I'm going to look after myself by doing this, this, and this. I'm going to maybe not schedule meetings. I'm going to maybe make sure I've got plenty of time to relax and get out in nature and whatever works for you, do you know? And then when you do hit that perimenopause phase, you're already semi prepared for that, because
Yeah.
that's when that's going to amplify all of those things that would have come up before, do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I shared a bit from my journal on Instagram yesterday, and that was exactly what I said. It's like this stage, it's like an amplifier. It just will amplify every time you self-sacrificed, every time you said yes when you should have said no, every it's like every emotion, it's like, "Whoa, now is the time to deal with it." So yeah, absolutely. I feel like if people could get to know that before that point and process and deal with those things and understand themselves, what a gift.
And I actually think that phase of the cycle for me is a real eye opener. And I think sometimes it actually reveals quite a lot about, like, exactly what you've said, where we're maybe standing in our own way, or maybe not happy with things that at other points in our cycle we might have just swept under the rug a little bit. And it really starts to highlight things that maybe you aren't satisfied with. And you can use that as a, like, oh, maybe I could change that, you know, instead of just being like, oh yeah, I'm just going to deal with all this stuff that I don't actually like doing.
Yeah, totally, totally. I am in the process of teaching in one of my group programs about cyclical living and saying that exact same thing. Like, when the full moon comes, or as you said, you can feel different energetically with full moon, new moon. It's not always the same for everybody, but if the same things are coming up, the same challenges every single month, the same thoughts, like, and you're just like, oh, it's just because I'm like on my period, or it's just because it's a full moon. Well, no, it's not. It's there on a subconscious level, waiting to be witnessed, so that you can deal with it. And I think that is, yeah, one of the gifts of cyclical living, that you can begin to see these things, and as you say, make the changes. So you're not just like, oh yeah, I feel a bit better now. Doesn't matter. I'll let that one slide or whatever, you know.
It's
And
as
then the
big
next month
as
comes around, and you're like, ah.
exactly. And honestly, it fascinates me because I think, again, as with identity, it's not something that you ever like, oh, I've completed cycle living, you know, like it's a constant learning process. And the more you do it, the more it reveals to you. And I find it fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So for like you mentioned people kind of feeling disconnected from their bodies, and I know you'd mentioned that, like, when you were on the pill before, that you'd felt, disconnected and stuff. What are some practical ways that people can kind of, connect back to themselves, either through cyclical living or, other ways, so they can just build that sense of embodiment and self-trust?
I think, again, it just depends on each person. So for me, journaling is something that I find really helpful because that's like my outlet of understanding what's going on for me. But I think it's just each person, like some people really enjoy like physical movement, like dance. And I think it's just finding a way of like almost revealing those things that we were just speaking about so that you can start listening to what your body's telling you.
Hmm.
And that might just be like meditation, like what you teach, just sitting and having that silence with yourself, because I feel like we're so busy and distracted. I think that's the biggest thing is distraction. We're
Yeah.
just constantly on the go, busy, moving, doing this, doing that, jumping from this thing to that thing, watching stuff on the telly, on our phones while we're eating. Like we've lost that opportunity for stillness.
Hmm.
And I think it's just finding that space. And it doesn't have to be like an hour. Do you know, it can just be 5 minutes of just taking that space to just breathe and be like, how am I feeling? What's my body telling me? And actually giving yourself a choice of like, do I want to do this thing that I've got planned today? Do you know? Or do I not? Because I think sometimes we get so caught up with this, oh, I've got to do all of these things on my list today. Why?
Yeah.
Like, who's making you? Do you
Yeah.
know? So it's just
Absolutely.
having that space, I guess, to think about it.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And as you say, yeah, finding that unique thing. I know when I was experiencing like various health conditions and I couldn't move my body and had kind of fallen out of love with my body. I'm like, why are you doing this to me? You know, I couldn't ride my horse, couldn't walk, do all these things. And one of the things that I actually loved was face yoga, um,
Oh,
because I didn't have to move, but you were getting that sense of touch. But
yeah.
actually, so much was released in that process as well that we hold in our jaw and our face. And I would often cry, surprise, surprise. It's not like a shocker for me. Anybody who's listened to the podcast or follows me on social media will know that. But yeah, like it can just be like that touch as well, you know, and as you say, slowing down and yeah, that's so helpful. Um, Amazing. So, how do you feel like this like narrative around yeah, menstruation, periods? Because I know that you are I almost feel like you're like a little activist for, you know, periods, pleasure, awareness. Like what do you think needs to change? Like,
I think for me, what I've really realized recently is that it's just starting those conversations, because I'm at a point now where I'm like, oh, we should have all of this knowledge. But actually, for some people, they still don't even know what day one of their period is. They don't know what a menstrual cycle is. They don't know what follicular or luteal means.
mhm,
So I think it's almost just normalizing that conversation. It doesn't have to be the extreme of it being spiritual and sacred and what a lot of people believe about it. For me, it's just making it accessible so that every day we're not ashamed of like taking, can you remember at school like you would hide the sound of like opening your tampon or your
oh
pad,
yeah, like shove it up your sleeve and yeah.
and you like it was just so shameful and like nobody spoke about it. I think it's just for me, I really want to make those conversations normal,
Mhm,
like make those conversations accessible to everybody in the everyday, so that it's not like, oh, let's come together and speak about periods. Like I want to get to a point where it's not a big thing. Like I just want that to be part of our everyday conversation of like, oh, I'm on day 20 today, what about you, how are you feeling? Do you know, like
mhm. Yeah. And
that's
I
the
think
point I want
like as
to.
you're speaking as well, you know, thinking about like men and boys and you know, having this understanding as well. Like my husband has like had to learn so much on my perimenopausal journey and I guess even our fertility journey, but about the women's menstrual cycle and how that has affected me mentally, emotionally, and how he can support me. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I think when we have these conversations, it's like yeah, not being able like not being afraid to have these conversations with our partners because um I know of so many relationships that have broken down in the past, and probably my own as well, where you know I had P or have PMDD, and then Yeah, okay, I'm now in my menstrual phase. You can do one. I hate myself and I hate you. And then next time I'm okay again. Um, so if you have a partner who you can have these conversations with, and yeah, if you have boys, like educating them around this as well, because yeah, it was one of the things I actually got bullied for was when my period started at primary school and it was by boys in the playground.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think it's definitely something that just needs to, yeah,
Oh,
conversation.
massively. I 100% agree with that. And actually, when I studied with Red School, I actually set up like a subgroup for people to speak about ideas for how we can introduce men into menstrual cycle conversations, because exactly what you've just said, my relationship has transformed since
Mhm.
I've been able to teach my partner how my body and my mood works. Because even as much as like sex and pleasure, like what we want sexually is going to change throughout that cycle as well. Like
Yeah.
it's not just our mood, it's literally our physical body. Like you're going to be less wet at certain times. Your cervix is going to be in a different position. So certain sexual positions might be uncomfortable. Do you know, like there's so much to it. And I completely agree that I dread to think how many of my relationships have broken down because of not knowing what
Hmm.
I know now about my body and my mood and my mind.
Hmm.
It's wild.
Yeah. There's a lot of work to be done in this world, Laura.
I'm on it.
You're on it. Yeah. You are, yeah,
I
bridging
just
that
need
gap.
everybody else to join me.
Yeah. Laura's period train, or I don't know. I feel like it needs a snazzier name than that. Um, So yeah, like when we are, yeah, let's kind of like dive into the identity piece a little bit as well, because I know that that's something that you are, obviously you mentioned you're exploring yourself. It's this constant journey. So how did that journey come about for you?
Oh, that's been a journey of my life, I think.
Yeah.
So I think a big part of what I spoke about in my TED talk is that I got bullied a lot growing up. So for me at school and things like that, I started molding myself into what I thought other people wanted me to be. And I just stopped being who I actually was to try and fit in, to try and be accepted, to try and be loved. And I think that's been the narrative for my entire life up until the last few years. Um, and it is that constant thing of like, who am I? Who am I? Do you know? And I've done a lot of therapy.
Yeah.
And that's helped hugely, because it's just sometimes things that you can read as many books as you want, you can read as many self-help books, you can do as much self work as you want. But I think sometimes you need somebody else to hold that mirror up to you and be like, oh, but have you thought about this?
Hmm.
Like just to challenge that a little bit. So yeah, I feel as though it's been a long, long journey. And I started having panic attacks as well back in like 2020, no, 2012.
Hmm.
And I would say since then, that was probably the biggest turning point for me of like, oh, I don't want to live this way anymore. Like, this is obviously my body showing me that I'm not living an authentic life.
Yeah.
And it's been, I mean, what's that now? Like 13 years or something. I'm
Yeah.
still getting therapy.
Yeah. As you say, I think, from a therapy point of view, it's good to have those spaces where we can be held and other people can, yeah, as you say, hold that mirror or hold space for us to unpick, unravel, judgment free.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be like private therapy, because I know that's not very easily accessible. I mean, it's taken me 2 years to get access to CBT again this
Hmm.
time around. But
Hmm.
just having like a coach or even just a really good friend that can just listen to you non-judgmentally, like just having that space is so important. And like I said earlier, it's not a case of being like, oh, I know who I am now, so that's the end.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, that's just me for the rest of my life. Like, it's the
Yeah.
same, even within our menstrual cycle, we change and grow, and it's the same through the seasons of our life. Like, I don't actually want to be the same version of me that I was 10 years
Yeah.
ago. Like, why would I want to be that person? Do you know?
Totally. Yeah, I love that. That was a realization for me as well, actually, after I'd stopped work due to ill health, came back, and then I shared this group program, which was based on my journey to connecting with my purpose. So I did that, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Da, 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 da. You find your purpose. And then I'm like, yeah, no, you haven't. Because you've got to do it again and again. And I've got one lady who's been through it for the past 3 years with me doing it as well, because it is cyclical. Like we are
Yeah.
constantly evolving and changing, and um, yeah, but that's exciting, as you say. Like
Yeah.
we're not stuck. Like we're never stuck. There's always this capacity to grow and not even grow, just like be more of
Change.
ourselves and change. And yeah.
And I
Hmm.
think it is that it's like just almost trusting in that, do you know, like trusting that change is okay. Because I think for so many people, I've seen it through my professional career as well, working in mental health, of like people get stuck in this comfort zone. And like, even if this comfort zone is miserable, it's comfortable. So people are scared to like take that little step out of it and let themselves change and let themselves do something differently. But that's where like the magic happens, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah. So I know obviously we weren't kind of touching on roles, but like you just mentioned, obviously you previously worked in mental health, you have studied with the Red School as a menstrual leader. What like, and I know I was really fascinated when you were doing like the moldings and castings
Oh,
of,
yeah.
yeah, like tell just like drop in some of the stuff that you've done so people can get like, 'cause, they obviously don't know you right now.
Oh my goodness, I have done so many things and I love I love to learn. So my professional background previously was always working with children and families. And then I got a role working in GP practices where I was working with adults in mental health. And then on the side, I was like, oh, I want to be a wedding planner. So I did that for a bit, worked in events. And then it was actually, which I speak about in my talk, I was in a motorbike accident with my partner. And that's what led me to be like, I actually don't think I want to work in that way anymore. And that's when I started my own business, which I don't like calling a business. I prefer to call it my passion project now.
Yeah.
But as part of that, when I first set it up, I was still like, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I was like, I just want to do something. And then I'd done a DIY vulva cast with Lydia Reeves back in like, 2021 maybe. I can't even remember how long ago it was. It was quite a while ago. And I'd reached out to her to see if she would be open to like training somebody up to do casting with her. And she said yes, which still blows my mind. I don't know how this happened, the universe and all that. So I went down to Brighton, trained with her to make molds of people's boobs and vulvas. And then we did casting pop-ups around Scotland, we did the northeast of England, went down as far as Manchester. And it was actually through those conversations with the people who were coming to get cast that I rebranded what I'm doing to Periods and Pleasure, because it was exactly what we spoke about earlier. Those conversations, I was like, I love having these conversations. And these are conversations that we don't really have
Yeah.
anywhere else. And that's what really started me off on like this trajectory that I'm on now. And I loved casting so much. It was so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like that celebration of like, yeah, your individuality and embracing our wonkiness, imperfections. I mean, what is the perfect boob, right? I don't know.
But literally,
That's
I
Barbie.
can't
Who knows?
stress enough how different everybody is. Like
Yeah.
every single person has a different body. And I think because we're so used to seeing this stereotypical what a body should look like on telly, in porn, on social media, especially with AI now, terrifies me. And that's a huge part of why I loved what Lydia does, because she's literally celebrating real bodies in a way that nobody else really is.
Mhm.
Because even when you see attempts at diversity on the telly, it's not. now that I've seen how many bodies there are out there, like diversity is not represented. It really isn't.
Yeah. Oh, so would you still do vulva casting, breast casting or
I am qualified by her, so I could if I wanted to. I just haven't had time.
yeah. Just like wonder like so what do people do with these? To just like have it like mounted in your like living room. I have this vision of my vulva now sitting on top of a fireplace, like almost like a little Oscar.
Genuinely, some people actually do put them on their fireplace.
Yeah.
So Lydia makes the final art. So it actually is just a piece of art. They're made from resin and fiberglass. And I've got my boobs in my hallway. I've got my bum in my downstairs toilet, and I've got my vulva in my office upstairs.
Love it. Love it, love it. Yeah, because I guess
Bits of
women
my
get
body.
like baby bump casts and stuff, don't they?
Yeah, I
So,
did one of those as well. I wasn't actually trained to do pregnant bellies, but somebody was really desperate to have one in Edinburgh.
mhm.
So I did hers for her, and it was, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Oh,
So
it's so
good.
beautiful. Oh, amazing. So, I don't know, is there anything else you want to share that is like on your heart that you want to kind of bring to listeners today?
Oh, I honestly don't know. I could sit and talk to you about all this stuff for
Yeah.
like 3 hours.
I know, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't actually think I've asked like those questions, but that's fine. But yeah, so I guess like one thing I normally ask my guests is just like how do you support your own mental, emotional, physical health? Just as like not because I'm saying this is what people should do, but just to kind of sometimes inspire people or remind people. They're like, oh my God, yeah, I used to do that. I love that.
Yeah. So for me, I've got a rigid routine to some extent,
Hmm.
but it's flexible.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. It does to me. But like in the morning, I'm quite strict in that as soon as I wake up, I do my morning pages. So for anyone that's done the artist's way, I do 3 or 4 pages of journaling as soon as I wake up every morning. And I'm quite strict about doing that
Mhm.
because that helps just like degunk my brain.
Yeah.
And then I always have a mug of ginger tea every day. And
Mhm.
it's just these little things that I'm like, that is a ritual for me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have like sometimes I have it in a travel mug on my way to the gym. Do you know, it doesn't have to be this whole ceremonial mug
Yeah.
of tea, but just these little things that I put in my day of like knowing what keeps me well.
Hmm.
And I think we've spoken before I came on the podcast about how you can almost do too much
Yeah.
well-being, and then it can actually sometimes become like a negative thing because you're
Yeah,
then not like
it's like an
creating.
addiction. Like if you've got an addictive
Yeah,
personality, yeah, I spoke about that with my therapist at one point. Just like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm actually like, yeah. And if you don't do it and it's causing you like stress, like, oh my God, I haven't done this, da, 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 like, is that actually supporting you? So yeah,
yeah,
sometimes I've said that
exactly.
to clients as well in the past, just, you know, almost stop everything for a week and just see what it is you really want to be doing. And I've done that
Yeah,
recently with, yeah, personal trainer, yoga, Pilates. Probably not my best health at the moment, having just like, like cold turkey, stopped everything. But yeah, I'm back in my daily yoga practice, which feels really nourishing to me. And
yeah.
sometimes there's so much opportunity for things out there, isn't there? Like, oh, we could be doing this and we could be doing that. And
Yeah, but then it comes back to what we were saying earlier about tuning into what you want
hmm.
today, right now.
Hmm.
Like, do you actually want to be doing every single thing of those well-being practices? Some days you might. Some days you might be like, yes, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm going to do all of them. But then most days, realistically, you're
Yeah.
not. And actually, a really good tool that my therapist just given me not long ago is to split my to-do list into a need to and
Hmm.
a could do. And
Yeah.
that's really helped me because like obviously you've got need tos, like I need to go to my job that I get paid to do, but like it was so interesting realizing how many of the things in my to-do list were
Hmm.
not a need to, but I
Hmm.
was putting so much pressure on myself to do them. Do you
Yeah.
know? And now I'm just like, do I want to do that today?
Hmm.
No, no, I don't.
Yeah. Love it.
You know, and it just takes that pressure off.
Hmm. Absolutely amazing. And then the other thing I ask my guests is just, I'm really one of my core values is freedom, and the podcast Be Free and everything, is based around that. What is it for you? What gives you that sense of freedom?
Skinny dipping.
Yeah,
That's not what I was going to say, but it's the first thing that came to my head.
love it.
Um, Genuinely, I do enjoy a bit of skinny dipping, but for me, I think freedom is just being able to be yourself and to choose how you live your life. Do you know, for me, I feel so free in my life now because I'm not bound to what I thought I had to do. I'm now just free to do whatever I want to do and not really give a shit about what other people want me to do or think I should do. Like I'm just doing what I want to do. And that's what makes me feel free.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. And I was gonna say, like, we were worried about swearing, like that the two of us together a lot of swearing on this podcast. And you asked me before, like, oh, am I allowed to swear? And I'm like, yes, that's fine. That was the first time you swore.
I
The
know.
whole
I thought
podcast.
that myself. I managed to restrain myself.
Brilliant. And yeah, so I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, or like how I will share Laura's links and stuff in the show notes, but is there, yeah, like any, yeah, what's best for people to connect with you or follow along your journey or
Um, to be honest, there's not a whole lot on my website just now, but I am gonna, I think, go back more to using that and subscribing to my mailing list if people want to get like to keep in the loop because I have a very love-hate relationship with social media. So I'm not the most reliable on there. So I think if anything, just signing up to my mailing list on my website is
yeah, and
probably the
you're
best.
also on Substack, aren't you?
Yeah. So I write a blog on Substack, yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's
So
if you're interested in reading my rambles, I'm over there too.
yeah, so yeah, I'll hook up your Instagram, your website, your Substack, and people can follow along. And yeah, a lot of shares, lots of interesting stuff. Plus all your journeys. You're just back from being away on holiday as well, which is
Yeah.
beautiful. So yeah, thank you, my love, for being here today. And yeah, I'm sure we will get you back in the future to chat on something else. Um,
Thank you for having me.
no, not at all. It's been so lovely. So yeah, anybody who's listening who wants to connect with Laura, go connect with her. Feel free to reach out and tell her you've had a little listen and share this podcast as well. And I will look forward to hopefully seeing you soon in person.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.